Nobody tells you that becoming a mother might feel like losing yourself. Not losing yourself in a beautiful, poetic sense, though that is there too, but losing yourself in a very specific, disorienting sense of not quite recognizing your own reactions, of crying without knowing why, of feeling simultaneously more than you have ever felt and completely numb, of looking in the mirror and not quite finding the person who used to be there. And nobody tells you that this is not a failure of gratitude or love or mental strength. It's a neurological event. Your brain, your hormones, your nervous system, all of it is being fundamentally reorganized around a new life, a new identity, a new version of you that is still in the process of being built. This reorganization has a name. It's called matrescence. And today I want to talk about what it actually does to your nervous system and how the YUSR method gives you a way to move through it. I want to speak to a few different women today. The woman who is pregnant and cannot understand why she feels more anxious than she expected. The woman who is postpartum and wondering when she will feel like herself again, not knowing that herself has changed and a new one is still arriving. The woman who loves her baby completely and still grieves the life she had before and feels guilty for both things simultaneously. And the woman who is somewhere in the longer journey of early motherhood, months or years in, still carrying the weight of identity transition that the world stopped acknowledging approximately 6 weeks after she gave birth. All of you. This is for all of you. The YUSR method was built for transitions, and Matrescence, the transition into motherhood, is one of the most complete, most total, most nervous system altering transitions a human being can move through. The term matrescence was coined by anthropologist Dana Raphael in 1970s, and it came into mainstream consciousness by developmental psychologist Aurelie Ethan. It describes the process of becoming a mother, not the event of birth, but the long, often disorienting developmental transition that begins in pregnancy and continues for years. Just as adolescence describes the full psychological, neurological, and identity transformation of moving from child to adult, Matrescence describes the full transformation moving from woman to mother, or from mother to mother of two, or from the woman you were before to the woman you are becoming now. And like adolescence, it is messy, non linear, characterized by periods of grief of what was left behind, confusion of who you are becoming, and a nervous system that is under profound and sustained reorganization. If you felt lost in this transition, if you felt like you should be further along, more settled, more okay with it, what I want you to hear is that you are not behind. You are in it. And being in it is where you are supposed to be. Let me give you the specific neurological picture because understanding what is actually happening in your body changes how you hold yourself through it. In pregnancy, the body undergoes measurable structural change. Gray matter reorganizes in the areas related to social cognition and attunement. The brain is refining itself to read and respond to another person's needs with extraordinary precision. This is not a loss, it is specialization. But it feels like brain fog, like being less like yourself, like the self you knew is less immediately available. Simultaneously, progesterone rises, creating sedation and deep fatigue. And the estrogen rises, sensitizing the amygdala, the threat detection center, making the nervous system more reactive, more alert to danger. You are more tired and more vigilant at the same time. This combination is disorienting. Postpartum is the hormonal cliff after birth. It is the most dramatic hormonal shift that a human being experiences outside a medical intervention. Estrogen and progesterone drop rapidly, and the cortisol and oxytocin surge. The nervous system is simultaneously in the state of profound opening. The neurological wiring for attachment is most activated. Sleep deprivation compounds all of this. Even partial sleep deprivation, sleeping in fragments, never reaching deep sleep, significantly impairs prefrontal cortex function, the thinking brain responsible for emotional regulation, perspective, or deliberate response goes offline. The reactive brain takes over. You respond from survival rather than from choice, and then feel terrible about the way you responded. The shame that follows activates your nervous system further. This is not a character flaw, this is neuroscience. The yield step takes a particular quality in matrescence because what needs to be turned towards is not just a difficult feeling, it is the dissolution of a self. Matrescence asks you to yield to the process of becoming, one that is not fully in your control, that doesn't have a clear end point, and that requires you to grieve a version of yourself that was real and worthy of grief, even as you become someone new. The resistance to that is understandable and almost universal. We live in a culture that valorizes consistency of self and treats identity change as instability rather than development. And so the woman who says, I don't know who I am anymore, is often treated as someone who needs fixing rather than someone who's in the middle of one of the most significant developmental processes a human being can undergo. Yield in this context means turning towards the dissolution rather than fighting it, acknowledging the grief of what was without using that grief to resist the becoming, allowing the identity to be in flux, honestly, without performing, as long as it needs to be. This is not giving up. This is the most honest possible relationship with what is actually happening. Matrescence's nervous system dysregulation has patterns that can be named specifically. The hypervigilant state, the on alert, can't switch off quality of new motherhood. Every sound, every breath, the monitoring of another person's life with your entire nervous system. This is attachment wiring, doing exactly what it was designed to do. But sustained at that level of activation without adequate rest is when it becomes its own kind of depletion. The identity grief state, the flatness and disconnection that comes not from the baby, but from the self that has not been found yet. It is an expected temporary loss of self that accompanies a total identity transition. The overwhelmed state, the flood of simultaneous emotional demands, love and grief, fear and joy, the exhaustion, the resentment, the tenderness, all at once, with no space to process any of them, because there's always something that needs to be done. And the invisible labor state, the particular nervous system cost of doing the work that nobody sees, the emotional labor, the mental labor, the constant holding of everyone else's needs in a body that is itself depleted and changed and in need of care. Naming the state that is present on any given day is the beginning of knowing what to reach for, because each state needs something different. The hypervigilant state needs permission to stop monitoring. Briefly, a practice that signals someone else is holding this for 10 minutes. You can put it down. Breath work, a short practice, a moment of deliberate sensory rest. The identity grief state needs witnessing. Someone or something that acknowledges that self in transition is real, that the grief is appropriate, that the confusion is developmental, not pathologic. This is seek as co-regulation, the presence of other women in matrescence, or a practitioner who works in this space, or a community that holds this experience rather than rushing past it. The overwhelmed state needs completion, something that gives the nervous system a beginning, a middle, and an end. A practice that has a clear journey, a short contained experience of moving from activated to regulated. That is why 25 minutes on a mat can be so disproportionately restorative. Not because it solves anything, but because it's one of the few experiences in early motherhood that has a form, a beginning, and an end that belongs entirely to the person who is doing it. And the invisible labor state needs acknowledgement before regulation. It needs someone to say, the work you do that nobody sees is real. It costs something, and the nervous system that carries it deserves care. Regulate in Matrescence is not about returning to the self you were before. It's about building regulation in the self you are becoming. A nervous system that can hold the enormity of this transition, the love, the grief, the exhaustion, and the becoming without collapsing under the weight of it. And that nervous system is built in the same way that it always is, one practice at a time, one breath at a time, one small act of self witnessing at a time, repeated consistently over a long time. Here is a useless sequence for a moment of Matrescence overwhelm, where everything is too much and there are 15 minutes before it starts all over again. Yield. Put one hand on your heart, not to check anything, just to feel your own heartbeat. To acknowledge I am here, I am allowed to know that this is hard. Understand what state am I in right now? On alert and can't stop, flat and lost, flooded and overwhelmed, invisible and unacknowledged. Just one word, name it. Seek. What does this state need? Permission to stop. to be witnessed, to have something that belongs only to me for 10 minutes, to feel a body that is mine and not currently feeding or holding or managing anyone else. Regulate. Do one thing, one breath, a self hold, legs up against the wall for 10 minutes while the baby sleeps. One practice that is yours, just that. On Saturday, I'll guide a practice that is designed specifically for this, for the pregnant body, for the postpartum body, for the body of a woman somewhere in the longer journey of matrescence. It holds all three, and it is built entirely around the YUSR method. You are not failing at motherhood. You are in the middle of one of the most total transformations a human being can go through neurologically, hormonally, physiologically, in your body and your identity and your understanding of yourself. And you're doing it largely without adequate support, without a village, without the rite of passage that this transition deserves. The YUSR method is not that village, but it is a framework, a way of being present to what is actually happening rather than what should be happening. A practice of turning towards the becoming with all its grief and its beauty and its confusion, rather than performing the version of it that everyone else needs you to perform. If this resonated, leave me a comment. Tell me where you are in this journey. I'll see you Saturday.